Hello, my name is Randy Scamihorn, and this is the Chairman's Brief. As Chairman of the Cobb Board of Education, I am privileged to serve as the spokesperson for the Cobb School Board. The school board, together with our staff, students, parents, and community, make up our team striving for our common goal, student success. Cobb students have a national level of reputation for performing well on standardized tests such as the ACT and the SATs. This year is no exception. Here to discuss the numbers and tests are two very knowledgeable people. Ms. Lori Horn is Cobb's Director of Assessment and Personalized Learning, and she is joined by Dr. Ehsan Kattoula, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Accountability, Research, and Grants. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Very briefly, we want to talk about and tell us about each other. Lori, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm Lori Horn. I'm the Director for Assessment and Personalized Learning. So I am a proud wife of a Cobb County graduate. My husband graduated from South Cobb High School, and then I'm a proud mom of two children, a first grader and a fifth grader. So very excited on the personal side to share that information. On the professional side, that assessment and personalized learning piece encompasses a lot of departments. So we obviously handle everything as the name suggests with assessments. So everything from formative classroom assessments up to our state and national assessments.
Explain a little bit about that.
So we have the assessment department, and then we have the personalized learning department. So the personalized learning department focuses on those things where we can address the needs of students who may be striving as well as those students who are thriving within our district. So.
Okay. Ehsan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have a daughter that attends a public schools, and I started teaching at Wheeler as a science teacher. And when Hillgrove opened up, they decided that I was going to move to Hillgrove and started teaching science at Hillgrove. I was one of the first educators at Wheeler that opened up the Magna program back in the late 90s. And at Hillgrove, we did the same thing. We started working with students to develop various science activities. And from there, I became a school leader, and eventually I was moved to the district office to be able to be the director overseeing the accountability division. So my background is in statistics. My PhD was on curriculum and learning and working with teachers to be able to understand data and implementation of data. In my role overseeing the accountability division, one of our number one goals is to be able to support the superintendent's initiative, which is be servant leader to the teachers in the school. So it is imperative that the teachers are engrossed in their data, understand the data, and it's important for us to be able to serve them in that role. So we take pride in what my team, our division, and I think the district office does as a whole in supporting the teachers to understand the data.
If speaking of each of your responsibilities, now does your departments and or both of you work closely together with the statistics and the data?
She gets there first because she has to administer the test, and we get the data once it comes into the district.
Okay.
And so the administration of the assessment is critical, and that's what Lori and her staff and the district office support and accountability. Once the data is comes into their district, we start unpacking it. We can unpack it at various levels that the schools need, at the teacher level, at the school profile level, and at the district level.
Okay. Lori, since you administer that, or your department's responsible, I know the schools administer it with your guidance. When the tests are done, what happens? Or do you coordinate that with the state? Does it all go back to the state? And how do we know if the questions are appropriate in the sense of being relevant? You know, are there good questions, you know?
So on our state and national assessments, as far as the questions go, there is a pretty extensive process that the state goes through to create those questions and vet those questions. And to ensure that we are asking appropriate questions and that the questions give us the data that we can count on, that they are valid and reliable, so that we can use that data to make decisions, which is one of our priorities of our superintendent. So, and when it comes for our district assessments, the ones that we create, we work with some outside partners to ensure that we have a vetting process in place to look at our training and the way we're training our teachers. We bring teachers in to help us create our district assessments that are aligned to our standards here in Cobb. So we take pride in that process of creating those assessments for our schools. So we're monitoring that testing environment to make sure that things are happening as they should. And that's an important part of that assessment piece, to make sure that we're administering assessments in the same environment across all schools, all classrooms, that students, when we get that data, we know that students were tested regardless of where they took that assessment, that they were tested within the same environment under the same conditions, so that we can rely on that data.
And you made me recall a few years ago, and I lose track of time, but it may have been about 5, maybe 10 years ago, where we threw social studies out the window. What happened there? I mean, was that from the our level up, or did the federal government or state government find something wrong? Are you familiar with that?
I am, and it's a couple of years ago, the state of Georgia decided to eliminate, as part of reducing the testing and testing of students and trying to create more instructional time. As a state, we just said we're not going to test social studies. And part of that is because the federal government does not require social studies to be tested. So federal government requires us to test English language arts, math, and science at least one time per level. So we meet that requirement with milestones, and since social studies wasn't included, the state decided to only test ELA, math, and science.
Okay. We recently received SAT scores for our students. Generally speaking, how did they do?
Cobb County has always done very well on these assessments. We have outgained the state by at least 70 points on the SAT, and we have outgained the national by 100 points. So our plan is that the students who participate in the assessment have given us good results. And it goes back to what is being taught in the classroom. The teachers are working closely with the students, understanding knowledge, developing critical thinkers. So when they go and participate in these, what is called the intellectual test, then they can outperform the state and the national.
Can I take both? As a student, can I take both?
You can take both. Typically, students will take one or the other, and if they're going to take 2 assessments, they'll try to perfect their score on the same assessment. So if I've taken the SAT and I want to take another assessment, I'll take the SAT again, because 67% of students will improve their score the second time they take that assessment. So you can take both, but it's typically students will take one or the other.
Okay. I guess these, that coming out of the pandemic, these scores would take a significant hit, given the difficult circumstances. From an academics perspective, how impactful was it, and how impactful do you think it will be on the next test?
It's a great question, and it's a difficult question, because it's one of the things that we know is we completely understand that students took a hit through this pandemic, but it's really hard to speculate on exactly how and to what degree of an impact the pandemic will have on like our SAT and ACT scores. What I can confidently say, and my core belief, is that in Cobb County, the initiatives that we have in place, those initiatives that were pre-pandemic, as well as those that we have implemented as part of our learning recovery plan, in addition to our world-class teachers, that in Cobb we will continue to see the trends of our students maintaining where they are and exceeding the state and national trends.
We have a number of learning recovery plans. We've always had summer programs, the Bridge program, as well as summer school and things. What are we doing differently?
So we've expanded our summer program pretty significantly. So For example, for high school, summer school, and the credit recovery, we provided students an opportunity to take up to 2 credits this summer free of charge. So typically, that has been about $500 for a student to come and earn a credit to recover that high school credit. So in a typical year, pre-pandemic, we saw about 200 students come through for summer school, and we had over 2,000 this year attending high school summer school. In addition, our summer programs for elementary and middle significantly expanded, and we were able to offer in-person as well as virtual opportunities for students at all grade levels this summer.
Ehsan, could you add to that from your perspective as far as our learning programs and our SAT, ACT scores? Did they take a big hit from your data-driven environment?
Our SAT, ACT scores have developed a continuous model of increasing. So every single year we have showcased, under the leadership of Mr. Ragsdale, we have seen consistent growth in SAT and ACT, which people would think that the COVID would have had some issues with it. But I think the plan that we had developed and using our Cobb teach and learning system, where the teachers never missed a beat on educating our students. So the students took advantage of CTLS, the content in CTLS, that they were able to continue their education throughout pandemic, and we see the results. I think if we would have used a different model, I think we would have gone in a different directions on our scores. But I think having the superintendent had a vision about how we support our students and our teachers, and it has worked. And it has worked from the national testing source such as SAT and ACT.
For the benefit of our viewers and myself, you mentioned CTLS. What does that mean?
CTLS is Cobb Teaching and Learning System. It's our platform that we use, that the teachers are used, where it contains teaching resources and assessment resources. And I know that Lori and I have been working on this since I think we both started here at the district office. So that's a simple version of mine, and I know Lori would like to add.
We started with the CTLS as the assessment piece, and we've continued to expand that assessment piece and enhance that year after year, and being able to add the parent component as well as the CTLS Learn for the student component and CTLS Teach with the teacher component has really been the difference maker, I think, in where our students are and how we've been able to address learning recovery as a district.
Okay, fantastic. We've always said that one test on one day should never be considered the full measure of a student's education. How does that relate to these latest scores?
So these scores do give us a snapshot of how students performed on the day they took that assessment. But you really hit the nail on the head. These one-day assessments are not where we measure students' success as far as their academic performance. So it really comes down to those continuous formative assessments that our teachers are implementing and utilizing with our students. So we make sure we are getting to the heart of that just-in-time teaching and learning and getting students what they need when they need it and not waiting for a large-scale summative score to come through.
I've heard in years past that some states require all students to take one or the other, or maybe the SAT. Is that true? And what is the advantage for them, and why don't we do that, if you know?
From my reading and research is that SAT, ACT is a voluntary. There has not been any mandates by any other states that have to give it. But the colleges, it's up to them to require which assessments that they're going to have. Some universities, top research universities, accept the SAT and the ACT and a high GPA, while other colleges just reside on the GPA because there's other tests out there, such as advanced placement or the AP test, that the students can do. So the changes come about based on the necessity of what the schools and the universities need.
One of my very things that are very dear to my heart are career and technical students. Should they take the SAT or ACT? And what should they be trying to do as they progress through school our schools.
Sure, I share that passion with you, with those students for the career readiness, and we want to make sure that we equip students to, doesn't matter which path they want to go, whether it's college or career, they may change. I mean, these are teenagers. They may change their mind. So we do encourage students to take the SAT. It's not something that will hurt them if they take it, but ultimately it is the family and the student's choice whether they take the SAT or the ACT. One of the things that we want to make sure is we put in the hands of our families and our students the information so that they can make an informed decision. So we do have a number of resources for our families and our students regarding the ACT and SAT, so they know going into it whether it's something that would benefit them to take this, whether it's now or in the future, depending on which path they choose to go.
Do you interact with counselors? I know you said you do with schools as far as the testing. Do you get input from counselors, or you give them input, or what?
When we work closely, Dr. Missy Marsh is the supervisor for our school counselors, and we work closely with her, whether it's ACT, SAT, looking at dual enrollment options for students, anything that comes through our office regarding AP exams, and making sure that our counselors have the information they need so that they can guide students to make the best decisions they can for them.
What would you say the biggest predictor of a student's academic performance? What's the outcome?
Well, if we're talking about SAT, I think the biggest indicator of how a student will do on the SAT is probably the PSAT. So we do administer the PSAT to all 10th graders, so that is something that the Georgia DOE funds as a state for all first-time 10th graders to take that PSAT. And so that does give a good indication of how students will perform on the SAT when they take it for the first time. So there's when they receive those scores, there's some resources that are then provided for students if they want to hone and improve some of the skills maybe that weren't strengths for them when they took the PSAT, so that they can improve on the SAT. And just generally speaking, as far as academic performance and some of those indicators, research shows that collective teacher efficacy and teacher credentialing has a huge impact on student performance and student success. And we have the best teachers in the world in Cobb, so we really do. But we can't underestimate also that the involvement of our families, as well as that collaboration from school to student to family, does have a significant impact on students' academic performance.
Well, as we finish up, is there anything either of you wish to add? And Ehsan, I'll start, since Lori started our interview, I'll start with you on wrapping this up for us.
I think the vision Mr. Ragsdale as a superintendent has set for this district keeps moving us forward. But it's not just in a straight line. It's actually what we would call step line. That means on every assessments that we're taking the next step up and the next step up. And you can see that on our graduation rate, on our SAT, ACT, that since he's been the superintendent, we have gone from the bottom floor all the way up past many steps and to other floors.
Oh, that's outstanding to know. Lori, do you have anything to add?
I would echo that. I agree with everything Ehsan just mentioned. I do think when you look at where we are as a district, whether we were pandemic or not, we are heads and tails above the other districts that are similar to us, as well as our surrounding metro districts. So I'm proud to be leading this work in Cobb and providing the best experience we can for our teachers, our families, and our students.
It almost sounded like both of you said, we don't care what you throw at us, we're going to take care of business. Am I wrong in that? Or?
No, I think that's correct.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree too. I think, there's not a problem that can be thrown at us that between the collective efficacy of the group we have working in Cobb to support our teachers that we can't figure it out.
Okay.
And I think, as we've heard many times the superintendent say, which is that there's those that teach and those that support the teachers. And I know I speak on behalf of Lori and myself, my team and her team, collaborating, always being able to be there for supporting those teachers.
Well, thank you both for helping us understand these tests and how well our students are performing. And thank you for watching. Join me next time to learn more about the great things happening in Cobb County School District. Have a good day.